Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Hybrid Couple Podcast. This is episode 2. I am Jason and joined by my beautiful co-host because she wants a different title every time, Vivienne.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm Vivienne. Thank you back.
We're never gonna get it started. This is our third intro. It's okay. Let's just keep it there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, this is our third time doing that intro, and every single time I flub. I'm so glad that Jason's here to be the host. So welcome back, everybody. And today we have a very interesting topic for you guys today. But before we get into that topic, let's go ahead and recap our week. How was the last, week or 2 weeks since we saw you guys in the first podcast? How's your week, Jason?
I like how you ask, like, our listeners, but there's no way for them to respond, like, right away.
Okay. Well, we want to hear about your week, so if you really want to recap your week to us, you can email us.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think we've been having a very good couple of weeks. I think it's been 2 weeks now since our last podcast, right? So within these last 2 weeks, Vivienne edited the podcast and a vlog. I'm incredibly proud of her.
Thank you.
So she initially edited the podcast on Premiere Pro, but Premiere Pro on a MacBook doesn't work too well, so she got incredibly frustrated trying to do multicam
Incredibly
edits.
is a strong word. I don't think I got incredibly frustrated. I was just mildly frustrated.
She was slamming the spacebar
I was
key pretty hard.
I was not doing that. I don't get that frustrated. But it was kind of annoying. It had like lags, and I couldn't get the clips to work as well as I wanted them to whenever
That's why
I
there
needed
was
to
no
use
video
it.
on the last podcast.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's because Jason looks so bored on the first podcast that I couldn't use any of the video, or else he would just look mad the whole time.
Well,
Why
okay.
are you like that? Like, I'm looking at you right now and you're smiling, but why couldn't you look at me in the first podcast and smile more?
In my defense, when we were recording the initial podcast, I was so worried about our audio level. So I was constantly looking down on my laptop to make sure that none of us were peeking, that the thing was still recording. It was like a lot of pressure. Like, I take recording videos and audio very seriously. So part of me was just like very nervous. So it was hard for me to talk and keep track of our audio. So
You're
now
a
it's
perfectionist.
so now it's a little bit more casual. We're not recording video. I'm just looking at my graphs, my little waveforms on Adobe Audition because
I have notes in front of me, and Jason's just looking at our waveforms. He's the sound engineer on this podcast. Thank you very much
no worries.
for producing amazing audio.
I'm just gonna alt tab to our notes, and hopefully it still records. I have backup audios running right now, so in the event that Adobe Audition fails us, we still have the Zoom recording
Oh my
of
goodness.
our podcast.
You are on another level.
I'm very serious when I say I take this very seriously.
Well, I'm glad you're here with me as my co-host and sound engineer, producer.
Yeah, we need another person to monitor our audio. That way I don't have to worry about it.
No, but then they're going to listen to us talk for like an hour or two and they're going to get bored.
That's fine. Well, where I was trying to go with that was that so Vivienne edited our vlog, which just dropped like last Wednesday.
I think this week.
Well,
Like a
I mean,
couple
like,
days
at the
ago.
time of recording,
Oh,
it's a couple of days
yeah.
ago. So she edited it on Final Cut Pro. I didn't teach her how to edit on Final Cut Pro because I kind of forgot how to do it. And she did it on her own. She looked up tutorials and she made a pretty awesome vlog. So I'm very, very proud of her.
Thank you. I went to look up some YouTube tutorials, and then I went on Instagram and I was like, someone please help me. So I had some amazing friends kind of chime in to be like, this is what you need to do. So that's that. And then this week I also got the podcast up on Google Play Podcasts and on Stitcher. So whoever's listening to this, if hopefully you guys would have found this on Google Play or something. I'm still working on iTunes. There is like this weird login issue with iTunes that a lot of people have been experiencing, so I'm not able to get the podcast up on there yet. But hopefully by the time this one comes out, it'll be up, so we'll see. But as of right now, when we're recording this, I'm having an issue trying to get it up. So
She was incredibly frustrated.
this time I was incredibly frustrated. So you gotta gauge my levels of frustration better, because when I was frustrated at the iTunes, that's incredibly frustrated, because I was literally like, ugh, like why? And I was like angry. I went to try logging in on like your computer, my computer, the iPad, my iPhone. It just didn't work.
Hashtag incredibly frustrating.
That's such a long hashtag. Anyway, so that was this week. What else have you been up to? Oh, you had like a win this week, right?
I don't know about a win. Are we talking about the Sigma lenses?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's really cool that happened, I guess, this past week was that Sigma sent me 3 new lenses to try out. So these are loaner lenses. They're not giving it to me. It's not sponsored in any way. But I just thought it's really cool that for after doing this for 2 years now, like bigger companies are finally looking at me and my channel to take a look at their product and reviews. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Sigma makes some amazing lenses, and I'm so glad to have the opportunity to try them out, to try out the new E-mount version on the lenses. So it's all thanks to you guys for watching and commenting and supporting the channel. So I really appreciate all your guys' help in this. So we got the new lenses. We got the 20mm, 24mm, and 135. And without getting into too much details, because we're saving that on the Jason Vong channel, we went to Griffith Park yesterday to try out the lenses, and they are amazing. And Vivienne loves all the photos that I took of her yesterday.
Yeah, I think I liked every single one. I love the ones on the 135. I think I'm slowly becoming biased towards one, but yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing lens, and the quality, the bokeh out of that 135 is just butter. I can't stop raving about how butter it looks.
Stop saying the word butter.
Butter. Incredibly frustrating. Fire.
Those are going to be our keywords for this podcast.
There's going to be reoccurring phrases and keywords that's happening.
All right, so that's kind of like our recap of this week. And let's go ahead and move on to today's topic, which I've titled, I Can't Do Anything Right?
Yeah, you can't.
Question mark, exclamation point. Hashtag incredibly frustrating.
Yes. Hopefully we won't get into an argument today on the podcast.
So we thought of this topic because of what happened like during the last week or so when we've been working together. And I wanted to bring this up because I think that we had a couple of frustrating moments.
Incredibly frustrating
moments these past couple of days in terms of our working relationship. So things have been better, but then I wanted to bring up one instance a couple weeks ago. So I've been helping Jason to do some of his emails, and I was replying to one of his emails for him.
Let's talk about why are you handling emails?
Because you can't write emails.
That's not true.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm helping Jason manage the emails just because it's more of on the business side of things, and it helps free up Jason's time to be more creative and to shoot more and to edit. So I'm helping him take care of that aspect on the side.
So going back to our last podcast, I mentioned that Vivienne is very good with the managerial task stuff, and I'm more on the creative side of things. So I'm going to take care of all the videos and answering comments and DMs and all aspect that pertains to YouTube and Instagram, whereas Vivienne will be handling all of the business emails, inquiries like sponsorships, client work, and all that good jazz. Anyways, go on.
I was working on his emails, and when we were working on these emails, I always bounce ideas back and forth with Jason. I ask him, oh, what do you think of this? Like, what should I say to this? And then he kind of rolled his chair over, and he was kind of watching me type out an email. And while I was typing it out, he kept saying, like, don't type that word, don't type that phrase, like, let's not say that phrase this way. And he kept correcting every single sentence that I was typing. And I got so frustrated. And I looked at him and I was like, you need to stop doing that. Like, it makes me feel like you don't trust me to type anything. And then it also makes me feel like you didn't like anything that I was typing, and it made me feel really incompetent. And it didn't feel like you trusted me. And I got really angry couple of times. This has happened more than once.
Yeah, it wasn't my intention to micromanage, and that's definitely what I was doing, because every time Vivienne laid down a word, I would go...
He kept making that sound in the back, and then I would look at him and I'd be like, what? You obviously have an issue with the word that I'm using, so what is it? Tell me. So, and then I got mad too, and I was like, well, do you want to type it? I'll just leave you to type it. I'm trying to like help you out here, and you are like making a noise at every single word I was typing. So I was like, all right, I'll let you take care of it then, instead of me taking care of it.
Wow, so much aggression right there. Okay, so the reason why I was doing is because, well, Vivienne and I have different ways of typing on the internet, like how we do when we talk in real life, I guess. Like certain words we would use, certain phrases, punctuations, because somebody doesn't use
I don't
punctuations.
use punctuations in text, but I use it in emails.
Mm. Well, anyways, I wanted to keep the tone of the email still in my voice, but we learned that it's not efficient for me to look through every single email with Vivienne and control every little detail before it goes right out the gate. Because that's the biggest time waster. and and I guess it's because when you're doing something like this solo for almost 2 years, it's kind of hard to like hand off a certain piece of thing that you do every single day to someone else. So I'm still learning how to let go and just trust someone else to do it.
Yeah, and I get that. I think after it kind of settled down, and we'll talk in the end about like how we resolved it, but it made me kind of reflect and going back to our topic of me leaving my job during the first episode. It made me reflect on a lot of experiences that I had in the workplace that kind of led me to, number one, leave my job, and number two, me taking it back with me to our relationship. So this is kind of a question that I have for our listeners is, have you guys ever experienced something at work where you ended up taking the frustration home and letting it boil up, and you ended up, lashing out at like your significant other or your kids or your family or your friends? Tell us about those moments and what did you do to kind of remedy that? Because for me, it took a lot of like introspective thinking to be like, why was I so like upset? Because I knew that Jason wasn't coming at me with like, I'm going to micromanage you and like tell you what to do, because Jason's not a micromanager. Like, he doesn't care about like a lot of other stuff, but why was this bothering me so much? And it kind of made me think back to when I was at work. I had a lot of just frustrating experiences with some of my coworkers, and I wanted to get more into detail about this. And part of the reason why I left was I kept experiencing this negativity at my workplace where I always got unwarranted feedback on my work, and it was never feedback that I sought. It always was feedback for the sake of, I'm more experienced than you, I'm older than you, so I'm going to give you feedback because I think that it is my duty as someone who is older to teach you. And I particularly didn't really like that because I felt like, number one, I was the youngest person in my workplace, and I felt that I had the experience and the work because I got the job, to be an expert in the position that I was in. So it was really hard hearing from other people who weren't even in my role, like they were in a completely different role, but they were on my team, to always chime in and to tell me what to do. And I think that kind of bleeded over. I was really scarred from a lot of those experiences, because I can give a really good example was I would type emails to a colleague and I would try to be as concise as possible, but then they would always misinterpret everything that I typed. And they would come to my desk and be like, oh, Vivienne, like, what did you mean by this email? And I would explain it to them in person. And then she'll say, oh, well, that's not what you typed in the email. I didn't get that message from your email. So every single time this happened, it made me second guess myself. It made me think like, oh, maybe I do suck at writing emails. Maybe I wasn't very clear. And I would take those emails and I would show other people and be like, I just want to know, like, was this confusing? Was this like misread or anything? And it took a long time for me to realize that it wasn't me. It was also the other person just not reading things a certain way. It was her way of what's that word? Not deflecting, but it was her way of
alleviating blame.
Yeah, kind of like alleviating blame, and kind of her way of like
Deflect.
not of deflecting. Yeah, that's kind of what she was doing. But it scarred me. It made me feel like, oh shoot, like I really am bad at this. Like maybe I really need like lessons or whatever. So that was like a huge example that I wanted to give, and that's how I felt at the time when Jason was like micromanaging my emails. Like it made me feel like, oh shoot, like maybe I'm not clear, and maybe I'm not typing this the way that he wants me to, or I'm not being good at it. And then I even lashed back at one point, and I said this one phrase, which made me really angry that I said it, because I've heard it from other people and I didn't like it. But I said something like, oh, well, like I know how to write emails. I've worked this many years at a company. Like you should know that I know how to write emails. And the moment I said that, I like hated myself for it, because I was like, who am I to be so like, was a fool of myself to be like, my name is Vivienne and I worked this many years in corporate, so I obviously know how to do this. It felt so stuck up, and it felt so like not me. And that's how I was like, oh.
And it's not that I don't trust Vivienne to write professional emails. I actually think she's a lot more professional in that aspect. I still like to throw slangs in my emails, which is kind of bad. That's why I stick to responding to YouTube comments and Instagram DMs, because then that's where I can be me and I can just type like, you know, slangs and short words and LOLs and stuff like that. So in regards to emails, definitely I think Vivienne is a lot more professional.
Thank you.
I think it's because one night we were hanging out and then we were kind of like playing video games that we got an email, or we were in the process of responding to emails, and I just kind of threw out nonchalantly. I was just saying like, oh, just make sure we follow up on this emails and say this and this and this, and then I guess that kind of, you know, I don't know if triggered is the right word.
No, I think it's because hearing it I think I was in a weird space, and hearing it, you meant it as like, oh, just follow up with it. You're just commenting on it. But I took it as like, I took that phrase and I spun it into like, oh, this email came in. Obviously you didn't reply yet. So you need to make sure you reply. Like, you need to make sure that you are on top of it. And I think,
like you say this,
yeah,
right?
but
like,
that wasn't your intent. That was not
totally
your
not
intent
it.
at all. So that's why I snapped back and I was just like, I know how to answer emails. Like, I've done it before. But it's weird, like, when you're in that space and hearing that, because I heard that in my workplace. Like, people would come over and be like, you need to respond to these, you need to respond to this. And I needed to realize that it wasn't coming from that place. And maybe it was different. Maybe at my workplace it was coming from that intent of like, you're not responding fast enough, or you're not doing this fast enough. But
yeah, whereas I'm just like, oh yeah, just make sure we do this. Yeah, that's it. Like, it was just very simple and
I was
easy.
upset that I took that back to like our working relationship. And that goes into different working styles. I think in terms of emails, like I read something that email should be just a very like simple form of communication, like back and forth, almost like just messages, really. And that's something Jason talked to me about. It's something he likes to do with his emails. And I've noticed that with a lot of the emails that we're getting, they're always very simple and clear and to the point. But my old culture at my old workplace, it was very like, we have to be really detailed. We have to detail everything out. It's like letting go of that that culture that I was in, and realizing that like this is how other people do email, and just kind of adapting myself to fit that culture and to fit Jason's tone too, because that's ultimately what's like important. And I knew like you were trying to help me in that sense, like this is how you kind of respond to things, you know? I don't want you to do like a 180 and all of a sudden you're like typing emails like, to whom it may concern, like, thank you very much for this. All of
a sudden it's like not even me anymore. Yeah, so definitely it's just like part of the brand is that we want to have the same voice and the same message. Mm-hmm. So again, like my intent was having Vivienne just kind of get used to what I look for and how I would respond to business emails for at least the first couple of weeks or so, and then afterwards she can handle it on her own. Just things like, you know, what clients are expecting, our rates to shoot, and how we approach like product features. That's pretty much it. Not so much like how she types the emails, but just more so of, you know, like what we look out for and how to deal with certain responses in emails.
Yeah. And going back just about like the workplace, I wanted to kind of briefly touch upon like millennials in the workplace. Millennials, like that word just makes me so
what does that even mean?
Frustrated sometimes, but that's how it felt. Like I kept being referred to as, oh, you're a millennial. Oh, you're such a millennial. Or, oh, you're such a millennial. You would do that. But
so they actually said that.
Yeah, there was a couple of times they would always refer to me as, oh, you're a millennial. Like you're doing like this as a millennial. But I never understood what that meant. Like I would look at them and be like, what does a millennial mean to you? Like define millennial, because to me, it just millennial is the age, the year that you're born in. But at my workplace, it was always like, oh, like, you're such a millennial, you're doing this the millennial way. And they would view me as like, oh, you're a millennial, obviously you don't know how to do emails because all you guys do is text each other, which is such a funny thing because I don't even text that much, honestly.
Yeah, it sounds very derogatory.
Well, hearing it from that sense, it did. I always seeked people that had more experience than me because I value their experience and I value their advice. But I think that is something for me or for whoever's listening, for you to decide who has the experience that you want to learn from. You know what I mean? Like, it's for you to determine. It's not for other people to be like, oh, because I worked 20 more years than you, I obviously know more, so let me give you that advice. I think it's more like you determine, oh, this person has a great life, has a lot of experience that I can learn from. So I'm going to seek them out to either be my mentor or to ask for advice, because I think that's how I always saw it. I always saw like respect should be earned. And I think that was something that was really hard. Was it was never deemed that way at work. It was always like respect is like, you have to give me respect because I'm older.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you brought that up, because I've always felt like, oh, like me being young and looking young on YouTube, it's just like, what gives me the right to like give advice or teach people how to use like cameras and stuff like that? But and I expressed that to like, the dads out there, and then they tell me, they're like, oh no, because you sound like you know what you're doing, you have a lot of great advice, and you came from a lot of experience using the camera. Not necessarily that you've been 20 plus years in the business, but more so because you actually know what you're talking about and actually have hands-on experience with the cameras.
I respect that. I respect when people come to you like that, because that's how I view other people. It's not a matter of age or experience. It's like, you look at the work that you do, and that's where the respect is given. But I also will say, like, people who have like many years of experience, obviously they have a lot of advice given.
Definitely.
But it should never come from a place of like, oh, because I do this, then,
because I'm better than you.
Yeah, because I'm better than you, because I'm older than you, so therefore you should listen to me. And that was like another question that I had, if anyone wants to chime in, is do any other like millennials out there, or anyone listening to this podcast really, experience the same thing at work or at life? And what do you guys do to, I guess, combat that? Like, do you just kind of take it in like I did? I just took it in and then I would rage at home. Or do you kind of be like, thank you for your feedback, but it's not warranted. I don't necessarily like need it. So yeah, that's kind of what our topic was today. And let's talk about how we resolved our issue, because we're not fighting anymore. We're fine.
Well, we have mini battles, but moving forward, like, we agree that Vivienne would just handle all of the initial inquiries and responses. And once we get to the point where we need to make a decision as a team, we would go over it together in a meeting. I'll express everything that I would want to say, and Vivienne types it up after, or Vivienne would just type out everything and I'll just glaze over it really quickly. Instead of us just sitting there together writing every single word down word for word. It's just incredibly inefficient.
So that's kind of what we agree that we're going to do. And hopefully it'll be a good standard for us moving forward to kind of alleviate that frustration. And also for me, it's understanding that Jason never comes from that place of, I'm going to tell you what to do and I'm going to micromanage you. It was never from that intention. And I always need to check myself and realize that that's not what he meant. He's just trying to, do things for the brand and do things for us. And it was never like that. And I don't think it never comes from a place of Jason not respecting me or respecting my experience too. So thank you.
I have full trust in her. I told her she can handle the money.
That's a huge thing.
It's a mistake.
So that's our topic for today. I think we wanted to just kind of discuss about little bumps in our working relationship and what we kind of did to combat that, and why I reacted the way that I did. And I think it's a lot to be like, oh, I obviously do admit fault for that. So sorry for lashing out at you.
Sorry for micromanaging.
It was never our intent. It was never my intent to lash out. And I know it was never your intent to micromanage. So
that's good. We're learning. And we do our best to kind of just talk it out in the moment, just to like get it out of the way, make sure it's squared away right away, instead of just letting it fester. And like,
that's a huge thing. Yeah. That was a huge thing. Jason was just like, you're obviously frustrated. Talk to me. And right. I was like, oh, okay. Whereas I would have just sat there and just like boiled and like been all angry.
We don't want any passive aggressiveness kind of like spawn from that. So definitely we wanted to take care of it right away.
All right, so that is our topic for today, and we want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you guys think of all of this? Have you guys ever experienced something at work where you ended up taking that frustration home, you let it boil up, you took it out on your significant other, you took it out on your family, your friends, your kids, whoever? And what did you do in that situation? Like, did you guys take a step back and realize that it was the frustration talking, or did you talk it out with the other person? Like, how do you guys remedy that? And then the other question I had was, does anyone out there listening, millennial or not, experience the same thing at work or even in life, where you get all of this like feedback, you get all of this advice that is unwarranted, but it always comes from a place of I'm older than you, so I obviously, or not even older, I'm older, I have more experience than you, so obviously I know more, so I'm going to tell you what's up. And if you do, how do you take that? Do you ever find that the feedback is actually really good and you're just letting your like frustration kind of be like, no, I don't want to listen? Or, do you actually feel like, do you actually tell them, no, thank you, but, thank you for your advice? How do you guys kind of handle that?
All right, very cool. So I think for our format of the podcast is going to be the last 10 minutes we kind of addressed last week's or like our last podcast, and we asked some questions in the previous episode, and we asked you guys to send us comments and emails, and what do we got? We got
Vivienne? A lot of nice comments on the YouTube where people were kind of expressing that they were in the same place that I was a couple months ago, but they're either about to make the leap or they're a little scared to make the leap. But it was really nice hearing from everyone that there are a lot of people out there feeling the same. So I love hearing that feedback. So if you guys have any experiences that you want to share, like please send it over our way. I love to talk to you via email or comments just to hear about what you're feeling and, what you're thinking before you make this jump. And then I also got this really nice email from I'm Josh Photo, and he's given me permission to kind of talk about it on our podcast. But he was basically telling us about how he wants to also pursue like wedding photography, but never really considered it something that could be like a full-time gig. And he mentioned how he really values his family and his house and everything. And it was always hard for him to, work. And he wrote here that he kept falling back into the whole, why am I even working here loop? And then flash forward to today, he's still in that same position, but he has a lot more responsibility now. And he never worked for him or for his satisfaction. He was always working to work. And I think that's exactly what we had shared in the last story. And he said, outside of working full-time and going to school full-time, he has a beautiful and endearing wife and 3 amazing children, a house, and a bunch of other financial obligations. So I think that's kind of interesting because the message that I got from his email was that he wants to do all of this, but at the same time, he also really values his family and his house and his kids and everything. So I think it's never a matter of like if and or. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I don't think it has to be you choose one or you choose the other. It doesn't mean leave everything behind and just run away and pursue your passions. I think it's finding that balance that makes you happy. And for him, it seems like he really loves his family. He wants to maintain that. But I think it's also like at the same time, he wants to find a way to let his passions in so that he can still maintain and help support his family. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that story with us. It really meant a lot to us hearing kind of what you're coming from. And if you ever have any questions or need advice, please reach out to us. And we wish you the best of luck whenever you start your wedding photography and videography business, because you can one day work your own schedule, be a wedding photographer, and help your wife raise your children. So thank you, Josh.
Yeah, so just to kind of like piggyback on that, I do have a couple of friends who are in that position where they are working full-time and their wives are taking care of the kids, and I just have nothing but mad respect for them because I can't even fathom like how much they would have to do to support their family and do filmmaking or wedding photography. So definitely huge shout out to my friends who are doing that, and Josh as well. For me, I'm just like, man, we don't have kids right now, and I'm still complaining how much I have to do. But I kind of have to look back and kind of realize that there are people out there who's putting way more efforts and into what they're doing. So
it's like priorities in life. I think that,
definitely.
We are fortunate right now where we don't have those types of crazy financial obligations, where we are able to kind of take a step more forward into our passion and our careers. But for everyone else that might have like something not holding them back, but something else that is also a priority in their lives, we say hold on to that because that's what makes you you. We're not saying drop everything and be like, oh, I'm going to do
Definitely
everything.
not.
No, but hold on to that because I think that's what's really important. And that keeps you grounded. And it also is a great motivating factor.
Yeah,
when you have someone that relies on you and you have something that you have to contribute to, I think that drives you even more to like do what you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great feedback.
Yeah, we're not saying it's impossible. It's definitely very possible.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that was kind of our recap, and we're opening it up to all our listeners to please provide your own stories about following your passions. Whatever you guys want to send it in. We have an email. It's the hybridcouplepodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't yet, check out our first vlog on our channel. It gives a little bit of a background into what we're doing every week or so. We're not just sitting in front of our computer all the time, even though I think 80% of the time we are.
Yep.
Jason is.
Yep.
Every time I'm filming him, it's just like, here's Jason editing, and he's just sitting there staring at his computer.
I am literally staring in front of my computer right now.
And if you are listening, subscribe to us on Google Play and on Stitcher FM. And then you can also follow us on our Instagrams for any updates on what we're kind of doing on our everyday lives.
Yeah, my handle's at JasonVMedia.
And I'm at Hello Vivienne. And we'll go ahead and kind of cut it there.
You should spell out your name because everyone gets confused.
Oh, really? It's Hello Vivienne. It's like Vivienne.
Yeah.
It's a very long, very French way of spelling Vivienne.
Cool.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Peace. Also, somebody complained about the music I used for the last podcast, so here's some ragtime to end. Here's the ragtime to end this podcast today.